Good Thursday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready to head to Baltimore for a 1 o'clock game against the Ravens Sunday afternoon. Back on the practice field out in Berea. And some good news. Greg Newsome, Pierre Strong, David Njoku all back at practice after not practicing yesterday on Wednesday. Some concerning news. DeJuan Jones not practicing. James Hudson got most of the reps at right tackle during the early portion of practice that was open to the media, with Jaron Christian at left tackle. Joel Bitonio talked about kind of the injuries to the offensive line and trying to get the guys in the right spots for Sunday.
We're kind of figuring that out this week. We have a few new bodies in here, so we're getting to know each other a little bit and get a little bit of extra work in.
You feel comfortable? You've played what was it, like
2021?
Yeah.
Yep.
You had to play, what, 1 or 2 games?
Two games at left tackle. I remember them. No. Yeah, that was a few years ago, but I know Bill's working to try and get our 5 best guys out there, and we'll kind of see how that plays out. Yeah, O-line's one of those positions where, as the year goes on, you're hopeful that everybody stays healthy, but it's a tough position. So I think Coach Callahan has had a lot of experience with mixing and matching guys and keeping us ready for really no matter what. COVID kind of helped with that too, because you had those random sicknesses. But it's one of those things where you just stay ready. For me, for Wyatt, for Poe, you're trying to understand the whole playbook. So if you do have to move out to tackle or do something differently, you kind of have an understanding of what's going on out there, and you can perform as well as you can.
With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, the challenging news, you're going to be down 2 of your starting offensive linemen. The good news, you got 3 good ones, and they seem to be able to find guys that they can get to do what they need to do on the offensive line.
Yeah, a lot of the offensive line is just, it's tug of war. It's not necessarily if you got everybody there, but if you have enough people to win that challenge for that week. And that's what it's going to be for this offensive line group, right? They're just going to try to battle it out, try to negate some of your issues there at tackle. And luckily for them, this isn't going to be an extremely challenging game. At tackle, right? It's not like TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith come to town this week, so at least you get a week to get ready for that. But yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's ideal either, right?
Well, the other thing is, we've talked about Jaron Christian, so let's give you a little bit more about Christian. He is in his 6th season out of Louisville, originally a 3rd-round pick of the Washington Commanders 2018. Has appeared in 49 games in the NFL with 16 starts between the Commanders, Texans, Chiefs. Appeared in 1 game for the Texans this season. He was signed to the Browns practice squad a couple weeks back. He'll be wearing number 64. And if we don't hear Jaron Christian's name called, that probably means he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, the best thing for anybody who has to play, James Hudson included, is for us to forget that they're out there, right? That's what we did with DeJuan Jones, to the point where we forgot that Jack Conklin got hurt for the year. And that's where you want to be at with any of these guys. Look, it's going to be a tough ask for them, but, you just want to find a way and trust in Bill Callahan to put whoever is out there in the best position to succeed as possible. And Bill's track record with this kind of stuff is good. We forget, but that Pittsburgh game that everybody talks about in 2020, we were out some tartan tackles in that game. And you can go back to the game against Kansas City that same year in the playoffs where the Browns came this close to winning it. They did not have either starting tackle in that game. So I wouldn't just count the Browns out or say it's going to be a disaster. This is why you have Bill Callahan on staff, and this is why you trust in Bill Callahan, because he's supposed to come through in these kind of moments.
All right, so one thing that has been very good is the chemistry between Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson. Cooper talked about his chemistry with Deshaun, as well as if those deep ball completions against the Cardinals grab the attention of the defenses when they're starting to watch the Browns tape.
100%. He went out there, he showed that he could throw the ball deep. Just like how you said. I'm sure people were excited to see that. They just want to see him go out there and play like himself, so that's what he did. As we know, Deshaun loves to throw that deep ball, so it's obviously very beneficial to us to have a connection there. The deep ball obviously flips the field, gives us a great opportunity at not just scoring 3, but 6. So it's really important.
Quincy, I know you've done this on your show. More encouraged by Deshaun Watson than you thought you would be? And if so, why?
Yeah, I thought that some of the stuff that he did was staying calm in the pocket, stepping up, and making some of these throws with anticipation was very impressive. And I thought it was actually building off of what he did in Tennessee, right, where he was able to make some pretty incredible throws on the outside numbers. I thought this time he was able to make some throws within the hash, which is an area where this Browns team desperately needs to get more comfortable in their passing attack. So I think that the fact that it wasn't a complete strip it down, let's go back to week 1 kind of situation. It was hey, we felt like we built off of a couple of things from week 3 that puts you well ahead of where I thought you would be in this process. It's still a process, but I feel much better about it right now that we didn't lose so much time, or that the time didn't hurt us as much as I would have thought.
Yeah, and as I said yesterday on this show, it's not that he has to throw for 400 yards or 300 yards. He has to make the key plays. There's going to be 4 or 5 plays that decide any NFL football game. You need Deshaun Watson to make 2 or 3 of those against the Ravens. If he does, Browns end up winning that game.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we're viewing it under a microscope like we are, and there's so many people willing to dissect every throw. But the truth is that if he weren't hurt and he played that game, we would be saying this. Well, he played the exact game he needed to, right? Veteran quarterback, made some throws down the stretch to make sure the lead got extended, didn't turn the ball over. Like, people get credit for that, right? But because the numbers weren't mind-blowing and we're still like trying to, we want him to, throw for 500 yards so we can feel like he's back, people are looking at it as somewhat of a disappointment. It's just kind of hilarious to me how this whole thing is going down. Whereas, like, hey, man, that's the game he needed to play against Arizona. This week, he's going to need to play a more aggressive style of football. He's going to need to do a little bit more and make those high-level throws, like you said, Dave, in order to be successful this week. But last week, that's what he was in there to do. And hopefully this is more along the signs of, hey, he's able to complete these game plans and be the quarterback that we need him to be. And if that's going to be the case, we feel good about that.
All right, Jim Schwartz, on what the Browns learned from the first game against the Ravens.
I don't know. I think I'll just leave that. I'll leave that for the Ravens to figure out. There's no sense in me talking about what we did well, what we did poorly, and what we're changing.
Kind of a challenge is he, though, obviously, with his ability to take the smallest play and turn it into a big one.
Yeah, he made some scramble plays and some quarterback run plays in the first game that we played, and we'll have to do better on those. We did a lot of good things in the first game too. Didn't play a consistent game, didn't finish the game well, but there's a lot to build on from that game.
Yeah, in Quincy, we've talked about it. 2 short fields. They got the ball 10-yard at the ball 38-yard line after 2 turnovers. 2 long drives. And a whole lot of 3 and outs. Part of it is they have to tackle in space better.
Yeah, and this is going to be interesting because this is going to be the first time that we're going to see what it looks like when Jim Schwartz gets a second crack at a team, right? This is the first time we've played a division opponent for the second time. It's a confusing sentence, but it is what it is. But this is going to be our first crack to see, hey, what adjustments can he make once he gets a whole week to see film against him, right? And that's where you hope that Jim Schwartz is going to be able to kind of edge out some of these younger coaches that they have out there. Not Todd Monken. Todd Monken not young, but, he's more experienced than Todd Monken. And have that coaching advantage there. So that's where I look forward to see what Jim Schwartz comes out in, what he feels like needs to be corrected and what he feels like didn't need to be corrected.
So, again, I know you've done this on your show. Do you think the Browns have lived up to expectations so far?
Record-wise, absolutely, right. I think this is exactly where we would have had the Browns, 5-3. Not getting here in this specific way, but again, how you get here doesn't really matter as long as you get to where you're supposed to be. And 5-3 is where you would want them to be. Offensively, it's not a mystery, right? They've been under expectation, but it also, it's not really rocket science. Shout out to Josh Dobbs to figure out why it's not where you wanted it to be. And that's because you had injuries at quarterback, right? The fact that we even talked about Josh Dobbs and Jacoby Brissett so much tells you, like, okay, that's why the offense isn't where it needs to be, right? We're below expectation there. And even when the offense has been healthy, Deshaun, he's got some rust to knock off, or at least there's some elements to his game that he has to get comfortable with again. And not having Nick Chubb's also been a huge blow to this offense. So yeah, the offense is underperforming, but the good news is that the defense is overperforming way more than your offense is underperforming, right? And that's something to keep in mind.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! No. You can get them now?
I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Jim from Rochester. The Browns and every aspect of the game are just as good as Baltimore, except one, the head coach. Mr. Stefanski will be totally out-coached for this game. And then I hear Deshaun Watson, when they asked him why all the targets seem to be Cooper, he said, I don't know, ask Mr. Stefanski that. That tells me that on this particular team is nothing but dissension, and it's going to continue to get worse. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Have a great weekend. Bye now.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I disagree. I don't think there's any dissension. I think he just didn't want to say something that the coach didn't want him to say.
Hold on, man. How did he get there? How did he draw that line? Like, he was like, he said, ask Kevin that. And from that quote, he got that there is major dissension in the, I feel like you want it to be the case, not that it actually is the case. That's wow. Wow. I think the callers distaste for whatever reason of Kevin Stefanski, despite the fact that he's the most successful Browns coach in the last 20 years, has taken control of every aspect and every single way that he perceives anything that happens related to the Browns, because that is a stretch. That's a stretch. That's just a man not trying to answer a question, that don't want to answer that many questions. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I got nothing on that one. It's pretty clear he's not a fan. We're going to mark Jim from Rochester down as not a fan of Kevin Stefanski, and we'll leave it at that. Alex Van Pelt talked about how Amari Cooper has been able to be productive with so much attention of the defense being focused on him, as well as kind of getting those other receivers involved.
Well, for starters, he has to be patient, I think, and he has been. The last throw to him in the game was something that those guys came up with on the sideline. You know, every third down, Amari was getting doubled, and oftentimes they were doubling from low and not getting back over the top. So those guys saw that on the tape and brought it to our attention. We dialed it up and drew it up real quickly on the sideline and then executed it in the next drive. So finding ways just to find balls for him, you know, whether it's moving around, putting him in motion, hiding him in the backfield, whatever we need to do. But very productive player for us. And, you know, teams are definitely doing their due diligence and trying to take him away. Well, anytime you double one guy, you're going to have to single some other guys up. So we got to win our one-on-ones there. You know, Elijah's done some really good things for us as well. Said just really getting into it now. Expect to see him have some more productivity. And then Dave, I mean, Dave's playing at an elite level right now from the tight end position, both in the run and the pass game. So finding ways to spread the ball, using the backs more in the pass game, all that's available.
So, Quincy, How do you unlock David Njoku and Elijah Moore? That's a big question. I mean, it sounds like if the Browns could put Amari Cooper in a different number jersey to hide him from the defense, they'd try that.
Yeah, I think a lot of getting David and Elijah Moore back involved in his offense has a lot to do with just having stability and comfort at the quarterback position. PJ Walker's not going to be somebody who you want to throw the ball in the middle of the field a ton, right? You want that to be Deshaun Watson. And look, David Njoku's not going to be wide open. You're going to have to give him a chance to make some plays in the middle of the field. You know, remember when he used to throw these seam shots back when Baker was confident and young? He used to throw these seam shots to David Njoku. They wouldn't be wide open, but they'd be enough so David can jump over top and make those plays. That's what we need to see from Deshaun, you know, get that confidence back and get that comfort in the offense to be able to hit David Njoku and Elijah Moore kind of over the middle of the field, and I think they'll be more productive. The reason why Amari Cooper, to answer the caller's question, the reason why Amari Cooper's gotten most of the targets is because look at the quarterback play, right? Like if you're not confident in your quarterback, where are you going to throw the ball? Towards the sideline, right? Because it can only go so many places if it goes wrong. If you throw it to the sideline, it's real easy to see a one-on-one with the wide receiver on the boundary. What's harder to see is to predict where the defense is going to go to be able to throw an accurate ball 40 yards downfield over 3 defenders. That's not something you want a PJ Walker to do. So, yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, getting better at quarterback, getting healthy at quarterback, and getting more consistent and comfortable with your quarterback. Well, it's going to do a lot to unlock David Njoku and Elijah Moore, because with David Njoku right now, all they've been able to do is throw him screens and get him the ball, you know, in all these specialized ways. Now I think they're going to try to get him involved in the offense, in the structure of the offense, and the same thing with Elijah Moore, because they've been having to do similar things with him. So it's about getting guys involved within that structure of the offense like Amari is right now, and that's going to come with time, comfort, and stability at quarterback.
Have you lost any of your confidence in Elijah Moore, or is it a function of quarterback play again? Because you haven't had Deshaun Watson.
I mean, whenever you don't see it for 8 weeks straight, there's going to be a loss in confidence in that player, right? Until he starts to be productive again. So there is that. Like David Njoku hasn't been involved in the structure of the offense, but when they've designed stuff for him, he's still been very, very successful for this team. That hasn't really been the case for Elijah Moore, where we're complaining about the specialized ways in which they give him the ball. So yeah, your confidence isn't going to be as high about him as it was coming into the season. But if he has 2 good games back to back, I think that all goes away.
All right, take a look at this. Early down rushing and passing offensive efficiency. So x-axis across passing efficiency, y-axis up and down rushing efficiency. And again, this is early downs. So the higher is the more efficient rushing, the more to the right is the more efficient passing. And you see on early downs, the Browns are not being efficient running or passing. They're in the same quadrant with the Bears, the Cardinals, the Giants, the Panthers, and the Jets. That is not a neighborhood you want to be in, especially when you're talking offensive football. That right there is a snapshot of why they're struggling so much. They're getting, quote unquote, behind the chains. They're not getting it done on first down, so it's 2nd and long, 3rd and medium, and then you got to find something to convert.
Yeah, and they've had a fair amount of first down penalties this year, and they have not done the greatest job of protecting themselves against sacks. They get those 2 things more often than they should, and I think that really leans into why they're so bad on that offensive efficiency mark. And they don't have Nick Chubb, right? Nick Chubb was good for a 7-yard run, on first down to get you in the 2nd and 3, keep the drives going. That was the magic of Jacoby Brissett, was because Nick Chubb was able to keep you ahead of the sticks at all times. Now that you don't have that cheat code, you have to find other ways to stay ahead of the sticks, and we just got to be more efficient when it comes to throwing the ball early for 7 or trying to get a couple yards in the run game. They got to figure out new answers, because wide zone with Nick Chubb, that's been the answer for a long time. Now it's not the answer. Now you got to switch to inside zone or something like that in order to get your 5 yards. And I like what I've seen from Kareem in that aspect, but yeah, I think they do need to make some adjustments to make that happen, because you can't continue to be in that quadrant. I think those adjustments will be made.
Do you like the screen game, especially on first down? Drop back, have everybody come after it, and start screening people to death, especially with a couple of linemen missing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this week, because Roquan Smith and screens just ain't a good combination. So I wouldn't do that this week, but maybe there are other weeks where you would want to do that, unless you're like heavily disguising this screen and you think you could just fool Roquan, which, hey, man, well, I don't think Roquan's the best linebacker in the NFL, but I don't think that's a good plan against him. He'll sniff that out. This is a week where you want to have Deshaun throw the ball deep downfield, intermediate to deep 8-10 times, and you hope he's successful on at least 6 of them. And if he is, you feel really good about your chance. Like, honestly, if he throws an interception or 2 this week, I'm not going to be too mad at it, as long as he's throwing an interception while being aggressive. I think this is a week to be aggressive and live with a couple turnovers, because quiet is kept. The Baltimore Ravens can also turn that ball over a fair amount. You look at Lamar, he's turned over and fumbled a lot this year.
Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage now. I'm going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Myles Garrett. What does a successful season look like for him? Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Myles Garrett on Up and Adams with Kay Adams, talking about what a successful season looks like for him.
I mean, success at the end of the day is winning it all. If you're not, there's only one winner at the end of the season. Everyone else, we're also Rands, and there's 31 losers and 1 winner. That's how I look at it. As far as individual accolades, that's all nice and grand, but you might get remembered for winning DPOY 1 year, but everyone remembers who won the Super Bowl. So I want to be able to hold that and be able to have a parade with the city of Cleveland, a historic 2023 team who did it all and brought the trophy back to Lake Erie. So that's what's most important to me. The individual accolades, they'll come as you continue to play and reach for the ultimate achievement.
And those scary guys, I'm thinking the scariest guys in NFL history. You've got James Harrison, you've got Aaron Donald, you've got Ray Lewis. They did win. They brought that title back. Can you do that in Cleveland?
Absolutely, and look forward to it. We have all the right pieces, have all the right people, and it's just a matter of want to at this point. How bad do you want it? What are you willing to give? And big thing I've been telling my guys is equivalent exchange.
And Quincy, you look at it, didn't hesitate. I think he believes it.
Yeah, I mean, he should, right? This is a team that has the chance to do it if they get some things to go right for them offensively. And I think that Myles knows where he's at in his career. He knows what he's capable of in his career. And he knows what he's capable of individually in any game. And Dave, if you was as athletic and as gifted at football as Myles Garrett, you would find it very hard for yourself to believe that you would go your whole career without winning the Super Bowl too. Right?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I have never been as good at something I have never been as good at anything as Myles Garrett is at football. And I have had moments in my life where I'm like, it's impossible for me to lose. I imagine Myles Garrett feels way more like that than anything.
All right, so Jim Schwartz talked about Myles Garrett, how he plays in big games, what he expects from him on Sunday.
He shows up big all the time. I would say he just has to concentrate on being the best version of himself. And again, this game isn't going to be our defense versus their defense or one player versus another player. it's going to be the Ravens versus the Browns, and we all have our part to play in that. In big games like this, you need your big players to come up big, and Miles will be ready for that.
And you can't say that any better. These are the type of games where Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, Miles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, they need to play well.
And it's important. Miles didn't have to go off last week to beat the Cardinals, right? Miles got his cool 1 sack and got out there, right? Just didn't need to do too much. Remember last time he didn't need to do too much was the San Francisco game where he just did what he needed to, got out, and then he had the energy to do all of that craziness versus the Colts. This is another situation where it's like, hey, Miles didn't have to do much last week. But, this week, he might have to score 40, right? He might feel like he needs to put 50 up, and he has that energy to put up 50 because it's not like you asking him to put up 50 every night. It's much easier and more efficient for him to do so. So, yeah, in games like this, you expect Miles to step up because, this is a game where elite talent matters, right? You're a good team. You're going to beat teams like the Arizona Cardinals pretty easily. But this is a week where it matters that you have Miles Garrett. It should matter that you have Deshaun Watson. It matters that you have Amari Cooper because big players make big plays in big games, man.
All right, so you tweeted this out. Browns defense starts drives on the average at the 30-yard line, 25th worst in the league. Yet they have the lowest scoring percentage against in the NFL. They average only 4 plays a drive, giving up 17.7 yards on average per drive. That's, again, one of those ridiculous stats of things that this Browns defense has done well. And the Ravens put up 28 on them, and they didn't gain over 300 yards of total offense the first time they played.
And the impressive thing about that stat is the Browns give up bad field position at the 30, right? And on average, they give up 17.7 yards. That means that they give up 2 first downs. Well, no, 1 first down. They give up 1 first down and then force you out on average. So if a team gets 2 first downs in a drive, congratulations, you are above average against the Cleveland Browns. That is just, they have been a monster unit. To hold teams to 17.7 yards a drive is crazy. It's like, I don't think this is anything we dreamed of this defense being. And yeah, man, Dave, to your point, this is just an excellent defense, and they're, even if the circumstances aren't great, they've been taking advantage of it, and you hope that the second half of this year they deal with less turnovers. The punter's good, so that means good field position, and what can this Browns defense do if they get some assistance, from the offense, not just in scoring, but in field position? Whew, I don't know. And what would the offense look like if they start rolling downhill and the defense is, consistently getting these guys good field position starting on the 30, 40-yard line because, it's symbiotic like that, how good field position begets better field position.
All right, this is from Pro Football Focus, every team's highest graded player and biggest surprise midway through the season. So highest graded player, Miles Garrett, 93.3. One of the highest graded players in the NFL this season, generated a pass rush win rate of over 27%, best mark at that position. Biggest surprise, they say, Grant Delpit, 77.6, 83.4 coverage grade, 6th best in the NFL, 22 defensive stops, leads all safeties. I imagine the Browns probably aren't surprised that that's probably what they expected of Grant Delpit when they drafted him. He's finally healthy and playing like the player they thought he was.
Well, he's finally in a position to do the things that he does special, right? And I think he's been a guy who's been miscast his whole career. Free safety, people thought he was going to be that. He wasn't that. Then he finally gets an opportunity to move to the box once John Johnson gets hurt, and that ends up being his true position. And now they know where to put him. And the Browns know exactly how to play him to get the most out of him. So this is a guy who's not only getting to the point to where he's reaching his potential he's always been capable of, but it's also a guy who's finally figuring out who he is in the NFL and what kind of player he's going to excel at at the NFL level. He's really starting to master it now. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And then you talked about that win rate for Myles Garrett, 27, just to give you an idea of how crazy that win rate number is. TJ Watt, who everybody would say, hey, he's pretty good, right? We all agree TJ Watt's pretty good. I think he has a win rate of like 17 or something like that. Like, it is significantly lower than 27.3. Yeah, Myles is just on a different level this year. What, number 2 is 25? Like, it's just, he's on a different level, and it's incredible to watch.
All right, so this is wild card matchups. So the first round of the playoffs, based on 50,000 computer simulations. They have the Ravens as the top seed in the AFC. They have the Browns most likely as the 6th seed facing the Dolphins in Miami. Second most likely scenario, Browns 5th seed facing the Jaguars in Jacksonville. So again, 50,000 computer simulations. Both of them scenarios have the Browns making the playoffs. So the Browns are right there where you want them to be. It's not a stretch to think they are, going to be in the playoffs this season.
Man, this is where we thought they would be, right? Because we thought Cincinnati might have gotten off to a better start and they would run away with first place this year, but the Browns will have a chance to challenge them. And they're right where you expect they would be. This is a Browns team that we really don't know where they're going to be at the end of the year, because offensively we got to see what this turns into. But we know what they are defensively, and look, nothing gives you a high floor like a good defense.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear what one of the national people from NFL Network expects from this Browns-Ravens matchup. Sports4CLE, will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Peter Schrager from NFL Network's Good Morning Football on how good this Browns defense is and what he expects from this Ravens-Browns game.
And think about the great defenses of all time, right? Like, you start thinking about the 2000 Ravens, and they had to bench Tony Banks and go to Trent Dilfer, and it was this thing. We've seen that. The Bucs a couple years later would do it with Brooks and Sapp and those guys. Like, that's been 20 years where we've seen a defense just be dominant and the offense just do enough. I don't know if we can get them over the hump in 2023 with the way the rules are and where the league is played, but I have to give credit to Jim Schwartz and that unit. And it's, of course, all the players. There's too many to name because they're doing so well. This Browns defense, it is the quietest storyline in football. They've been absolutely suffocating. And yes, they lost to the Ravens by 25 points. They thought Deshaun Watson was going to start, and then about an hour before the game, he's like, I'm not going. They're like, you're not going. And they put in a rookie at a UCLA, a 5th-round pick who hadn't taken any reps the week before. So I think this is going to be a very close game. If I'm going to, it's not going to be a 37-6 win. It's not going to be a 45-7. I would say this thing is going to be much more in line with the old Ravens-Steelers games played at the bank. I'm thinking this is 16-13. This is 19-16. One of those type games, maybe even lower. And I think the Browns defense shows up on Sunday.
Quincy, I kind of tend to agree the style of game, and just in listening to Jim Schwartz and the Browns defense, the defenders that have spoken, I get the feeling that Ravens game didn't sit very well with them.
Oh, both teams going to be ready to play. Like, both teams will be ready to play. The Browns, they want to prove that this defense is not a home-only affair, that this is a defense that they can pack up on the road versus a good team and be elite against, right? They want to show that they can play a good game versus an elite quarterback while that quarterback's playing elite, because they're tired of people running for cover every time people say that some people say that the Browns defense is elite. People always point out, well, Joe didn't look like Joe and Brock Purdy didn't look like Brock. And it's like, maybe it's us, and you want to prove that point. You prove that point this week on the road versus the Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens, like, they know what's at stake this week, man. Like, they want to go for that sweep. They're playing at home. They already got you at road. Right. Roquan Smith said it last time. You know, they don't want to lose in front of their family and their kids and their wife or whatever that Roquan Smith said. So, you know, they're going to be playing extra hard too. Yeah, it's going to be a hard-fought battle. Look, some games can be explained technically, and then some games can be explained by a ton of cliches. And this is a game that's going to be explained by a ton of cliches. It's going to be a lunch pail game. You got to bring your lunch to this one. It's going to be hard smacking AFC North. You're going to hear all of the cliches during this game. But it's going to be true, because this is going to be that kind of game.
Take a look at this. This is kind of the season comparison. This is from Brad Stainbrook tweeting this out. The tail of the tape, if you will, and things are pretty similar. You see, points per game is within 4. Total yards is within 40. Yards rushing is within 20. Yards passing is within 20-ish, 25. Points allowed within 4. Defensive yardage allowed within 30. The thing that really sticks out is the turnover ratio. Browns are -4, Ravens are +1. And again, that's, if you're looking for things that swing games, big plays, turnovers, those are the two things.
Absolutely. And it's not like the Ravens are a team that doesn't turn the ball over. You know, like, they're a team that's turned the ball over a fair amount so far this year, with their 11th right now in turnover ratio. So, like, usually that's a team that's prone to turn the ball over. But when you're 23rd, and honestly, it is a credit to what they did against Arizona that they're not 32nd, right? Like, that is wild to me, because for a while they were riding some incredible turnover reigns. But you have to ask yourself, though, how much does that actually matter, that turnover number? Not because, like, turnovers aren't effective, but is that going to be the case going forward? Right? Because if I brought up a bunch of Joe Burrow numbers from pre-week 3 and then told you those are his numbers coming into a game before the San Francisco game, you'd be like, oh, yeah, we got this. But those numbers don't matter, because that's not the Joe Burrow you're playing, right? The question is, are those offensive numbers going to stick for the Cleveland Browns? Because is this the offense that the Ravens are playing, the one that's existed for the Cleveland Browns the last 8 weeks? Or are the Ravens going to be playing somebody that they're not familiar with, and they're going to introduce themselves on Sunday? Hey, we're going to find out.
All right, so what's the game plan? And I know you've addressed this. What's the game plan for the Browns against the Ravens?
You see, a lot of people are saying you got to be passive, you got to be willing to take what's there, and you got to just stay back and do everything you can not to turn the ball over. If you're the Cleveland Browns this week, you cannot be afraid to take a risk. This game is not going to be won without taking a risk. So you're going to have to be aggressive on offense and defense. I know you can miss a tackle. It could be a big play, but they got those big plays on other teams that weren't being aggressive, right? The Ravens game plan, and the Ravens, I equate them to somebody who likes to play chess, right? The Ravens, what they want to do is move that pawn up the field right in that first quarter. They just want to keep moving pawns up and then see what you're doing, and then you move your pawns, and they're going to move their pawns, and they're going to let you get a couple, make you feel good, but they're really setting you up for a move there. What the Browns want to do, and what the Browns are great at, is just overwhelming, smothering. They're checkers, right? They just get downfield, get rid of your pieces. I'm going to have more pieces than your pieces. We're going to get rid of you, right? It's going to be a battle of those two philosophies at the beginning of this game, and the Browns cannot put themselves in a position to play the Ravens games. If the Ravens get you to dink and dunk and do all of that, look what happened to Geno Smith. He dinked and dunked for the first quarter, then they clamped on that, and then he's getting frustrated. Next thing you know, he starts taking bad shots downfield. If you're the Browns, take a shot downfield to start the game. I wouldn't mind that, right? Your first drive, you take a deep shot downfield to start the game to let them know, hey, I'm not afraid. I'm going to take these shots. We're going to be aggressive. Blitz if you want. If you blow something in the back end, it's going down, right? That's what you want to let them know, so they back up a little bit, right? You want to run that ball up the middle because they run a lot of double mug blitzes where guys are going to be all on the line scrimmage, but they're going to be dropping back in coverage. If you're going to do that all game against me, I'm going to run it up the middle because you're creating gaps when those guys instinctively back up on the line of scrimmage. So run the ball up the middle, take shots down the field, get that defense uncomfortable. Same philosophy on the defensive side of the ball. Be aggressive. I don't care if you're worried about missing the tackle on Lamar. If you make the tackle, you ain't got to worry about missing the tackle. It seems super simple, but that's the truth. Just make the tackle. Make the initial play, right? And then we ain't got to worry about, what happens if he breaks the tackle. We don't got to make that assumption, right? Get downhill, attack him, make Lamar uncomfortable, make the Ravens uncomfortable, make Lamar start to press and make bad decisions down the field because he wants to make plays. When you've been at your best against the Ravens, it's been when you've been aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. That should not change this week. I understand the urge for people to say, hey, we just need to play as safe as possible, but that's for next week, right? When you play Pittsburgh, that's for a team that has a bad offense. That's for a team that's not as good as the Baltimore Ravens. When you play the Baltimore Ravens, you cannot play into their hand. And what the Ravens want you to do is to be passive. They want you to get used to just taking this and taking that, just throwing to the running back, throwing to the running back, throwing to the running back. No, you got to take some shots downfield and be okay risking it against the Baltimore Ravens with no hesitation, because that's the only way you're going to take them out their game plan. And then if you do that, you're going to be able to free up some things later in the line. But if you play their game, they're great at chess. They will beat you. Right, you find the Browns defense starting to move pawns, like, we're gonna move the pawn, we're gonna play okay. They're gonna get beat. If the offense does the same thing, they're gonna get beat. So that's where this game comes down to.
All right, before I let you go, under the radar guy you think could have a huge role, maybe make a big play or two for the Browns?
David Njoku doesn't count for an under radar guy, so I'll go Elijah Moore or Cedric Tillman. Somebody who can get the ball deep to intermediate and make a big chance. Also, James Prochet. That combo pack of guys, I'll throw a combo pack out there. That 3-pack could end up being impactful because I know they're going to take away Amari Cooper. Somebody's got to step up on that other side and be a deep threat, and I think that one of those guys are primed too.
Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Peace, man. Thank you.
Quincy Carrier, make sure to check him out. Untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. Always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Jackson McCurry on the other side of break. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! Hello? You can get them now?
I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America,
the ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Jim Schwartz, Browns defensive coordinator, talked about how his defense has performed so far this season.
We're trying to win the game. You know, not a lot of style points. You know, I think you know, I've said before, you know, how we're doing on defense is 5-3. How the individual players are doing on defense is 5-3. It's hard in this league. It's hard to stop offenses. You know, we have to play our very best every series, every down, and if we do that over the course of the game, then we'll get good results. You know, and I think the result last week was an indicator of good, consistent defense, and that's something that we've been struggling the previous 2 weeks to find.
With that, let's welcome in Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. And Jackson, you can be sure that's, if he's saying it to us, that's what he's saying to his team. We need to be more consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the 2 letdown games against Indy and Seattle, they just weren't consistent enough. They made big plays, but they just weren't consistent for a full 60 minutes. And I think that's what Jim Schwartz wants out of the defense. I think that's what the players want to do, but we know miscues, things happen on the field any given Sunday. It was nice to see them go out there and be able to take care of business against a bad team like Arizona. But this is where the season starts to ramp up, Dave. You got 2 big division matchups against Baltimore and Pittsburgh coming up. The defense needs to bring their A game for all 60 minutes. And then down the stretch into November, when the Browns hopefully are still in the playoff hunt and have a chance to go out there and get the Browns back into the playoffs. And I think they got to ride this defense. This defense has played great at times. It's had some mishaps, but all in all, it's been a great defense. Like he says, they're 5-3. They could be better if there was better defensive performances, but at the same time, that's where the offense needs to step up as well.
All right, so take a look at this chart. It's very interesting. This is cash spending on defense in 2023 and defensive EPA per play. So the y-axis is EPA per play allowed. X-axis 2023 defensive cash spending in millions. So you see the Browns spending, but they're getting really good results as they are that upper right quadrant. Whenever we show you these, that's where you want to be. The Ravens are not spending a lot and still getting good results. But the 2 defenses that are playing for the 2 teams are the 2 best via EPA per play defensively.
Yeah, and it's a situation where the Browns have drafted well, adding Myles Garrett, Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, and they've been able to pay guys like Myles and Denzel. Obviously, they added guys in free agency, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, whereas Baltimore, they got a young defense that they've drafted well and helped develop. They've added some key free agents, but it's a scenario where, Baltimore is going to have to pay some guys soon. I mean, if they're going to have to keep riding that ship, obviously Kyle Hamilton's off to a good start to his career. That's a guy they'll have to pay in a couple of years. Patrick Queen, will they pay him even though they paid Roquan Smith? That's to be determined. And Justin Madubuike, who's got 7.5 sacks as a D tackle, was another one of their young draft picks. They'll have to pay them. So at a certain point here in a couple of years, they may have to move over to that right quadrant, just like the Browns, where they drafted well. Now, will they turn around and pay them, or will they eventually draft their replacement? So it is a tale of 2 defenses, but I think both sides have drafted quite well, and it's paying off big time, as I think they're the best 2 defenses in the league right now.
So Jim Schwartz talked about the Ravens. They have an undrafted rookie, Keaton Mitchell, who they put in the lineup and ran for over 100 yards. He talked about what Mitchell has done and brought to this Ravens run game.
Oh, yeah, made some big plays last week. They got a lot of different kind of backs, between Hill and Edwards and Mitchell. They different sizes, different strengths, and I think, when they lost their starter at the beginning of the year, they were sort of finding it. Well, they didn't replace him with just one guy. They replaced him with a bunch of different guys, and that's sort of the way this league goes. You get, different players that have different strengths. The thing about playing offense is, you're the one that can decide what personnel packages you're going to be in. You can decide, how you're going to use a guy, whatever. Like, if you don't like him in pass protection, well, free release him. If you don't like him in the pass game, well, run the ball. So I think there's ways that offensive coordinators can make use of guys that have very distinctive skill sets, and we'll know which running backs in the game, and we'll have a plan for each of them.
And again, it is very diverse. It's similar to what the Browns have done with Hunt and Strong and Ford.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell was a guy that I had my eye on during the draft process out of East Carolina. Was very explosive as a ball carrier. Was surprised he went undrafted, and then that surpriseness turned into anger once he signed with Baltimore. But I was always wondering when they were going to finally get him involved in the offense. They have two good backs in Hill and Edwards, like Schwartz said. And then Mitchell exploded last week, played just 11 snaps, 9 carries for 138 yards. 132 of those yards came after contact, forced 8 missed tackles, and had 3 explosive runs. So this is a guy with 4.3 speed. He's electric with the ball in his hands out of the backfield. So, the Browns are going to have their hands full. We already thought they were going to with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, but now if they sprinkle Keaton Mitchell in there, he's a hard guy to get down, as evident as what Seattle had to go through last week. But Mitchell also got added to the injury report today with a hamstring, so maybe we don't see him on Sunday, but if they do, the Browns definitely have to have a solid game plan to be able to shut him down.
All right. He came off of the practice squad and contributed immediately. All right. Along those lines, running back Kareem Hunt tied for 9th among running backs with 5 red zone touchdowns, scoring on 41% of his carries inside the opponent's 20. And again, that's huge. That's where they only let the big boys carry the ball inside the 20 in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. Like, Kareem's not the same running back he was a couple of years ago, but he's still effective. And when it gets inside the 20, that's the guy you want to give the ball to if you're going to run the ball. He's got 5 touchdowns, 4 consecutive games with a touchdown. Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, they each bring something to the table. But when you get in the red zone, you want to have that big power back, and Kareem Hunt's that guy. Make no mistake about it. I'd like to see more Pierre Strong. I think Jerome Ford has done some good things. But when we get down towards the goal line, Dave, you got to give it to Kareem. He reminds me of that Jamal Lewis type back, even glimpses of Nick Chubb, where he's going to fight for each and every yard. And, if you need somebody to punch that ball in a goal line situation, you got to give it to Kareem, as evident in the Indy game, the game winner. So, yeah, definitely keep giving Kareem the ball in the red zone for sure when you're running the ball.
Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll talk about some keys to the Browns and Ravens game. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! You can get them now? I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns with Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. This game versus the Ravens is what we've been waiting for since 1999. We finally get to play a meaningful game this late in the season versus our rival. I know even if we lose, our season isn't over, but losing pretty much concedes the North Division. We've been waiting so long for a chance to compete for the division, and here it is right in front of us. This is why Barry went out and acquired Watson and withstood all the backlash and all the hate. Browns have to prove that they are no longer the lovable loser, the little brother of the AFC North. Let's go into Baltimore and get a dub by any means necessary.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jackson, yeah, we've said it, and especially in games like this, there are no style points. One more point than the Ravens, all you need. Doesn't matter how you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of us said after the San Fran game that was Stefanski's signature win. If he goes into Baltimore and they beat this team and they move to 6-3, one game out of the division lead, I mean, it's going to be huge. Now, is it going to make or break the season? I wouldn't say so, because there's still a lot of football left. Crazy things can happen, but this would be like the signature win for the franchise since '99. If they were able to go in, beat the powerhouse Ravens, who have been dominating opponents for the most part this season, against that tough defense, against Lamar Jackson, like, it would be huge. It would, I think it could catapult this franchise to where they want to go this season, and a division title is something that this franchise needs. It hasn't happened in my lifetime. They could go well on their way to doing that if they pull this victory off on Sunday.
Yeah, I was a couple of years out of college when it happened, so I got you by a few. All right, 3 vital keys to ensure Browns victory in Week 10. This is from Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, tighten up in the red zone. Number 2, hit on your explosives. Number 1, get Baltimore off the field on third downs. And as an overarching thing, I think those are spot on. I think you have to limit the explosives of the Ravens as well. These defenses are good enough. You're not going to get 2 or 3, 80-yard drives on either one of them. You're going to get big plays that lead to scoring plays.
Yeah, they can hit you in a variety of ways, whether it's Lamar running the ball, the other running backs making big plays. They got Zay Flowers, they got Mark Andrews. They have Odell, who they've been, getting him the ball more these last couple weeks. So they can hit you in a variety of ways. But, yeah, you got to stop the big explosive plays. I was at the game the first go-around against Baltimore. There was big plays, and then the defense started to unravel. They got to limit the explosive plays. Force some turnovers, limit their turnovers on offense, and that's how you're going to win. If you can rattle Baltimore on both sides of the ball, then the Browns have a definitely good chance to win. It's going to come down to that fourth quarter and which defense is going to break first, and I think that's ultimately going to decide who wins this game.
What about key matchups? What are some of the things that you're watching that you think, will determine who wins this? And again, if the Ravens win it, they're that much further up in the AFC North. They kind of got a leg up on everybody. If they beat the Browns, they start putting that foot on the throat of the Browns relative to the AFC North.
Yeah, and they can wrap it up next week against Cincinnati on Thursday night, because I think they'd be up like 3 games on everybody in the division. But I think the biggest key matchup is our offensive line, which obviously has gone through a lot of changes against their defensive front. I looked it up. Their starting defensive front, which is Owe, Matabike, Pierce, Washington, and Clowney, they have 119 pressures on quarterbacks through 9 games. And in comparison, the Browns have 112 pressures through 8 games. So, it's neck and neck who's getting after the quarterback the most between the two teams. But, with the uncertainty of DeJuan Jones' injury, if he's going to be able to go, you got James Hudson working both left tackle and right tackle. And then you're in a scenario where Garon Christian or even Leroy Watson, who they just added those two within the last week, it's going to be interesting to watch on Sunday how this offensive line plays. And I think it brings, the jumbo packages where they bring in Nick Harris, they might throw out, Luke Whippler, and it comes down to the tight ends too, like Njoku and Bryant. They give it their all in blocking, and they're going to need them for sure against that defensive front of Baltimore's on Sunday. If the Browns are going to have any chance to win, they got to protect and give Watson time to throw the ball downfield.
Yeah, you may see some max protecting, two receiver routes to try to help out with that, because I think they do want to attack them vertically, but you're going to have to make sure that Watson has time to do that.
Without a doubt. And it's up to Watson, too, to get the ball out quick. We know he likes to extend, make plays with his legs, trying to get, the ball downfield. But at the same time, if that pressure is coming from Baltimore, he's going to have to get the ball out quickly. Maybe throw in some of the screens that were effective against Seattle, get Pierre Strong involved. The tight end screen with Njoku, which was effective against Seattle. Just get the ball out quickly, make those plays down the field, and hopefully, rattle the Baltimore defense somewhat and give the Browns a chance to win.
Jackson McCurry, the Dawgland podcast, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jackson.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
Again, check him out, Jackson McCurry, on the Dawgland podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.